This was the Russian-Georgian border on September 26, 2022, the fifth day after the partial mobilization announced by Vladimir Putin. Crowds of Russians of military age in cars, or on foot, or on bicycles were trying to leave Russia in order to avoid being mobilized and sent to fight against Ukraine. The road took about 36 hours from Moscow. We drove by car, then crossed Vladikavkaz. Everything is blocked there. They don't let anyone in. Only the locals are somehow bypassed. Then we walked from Vladikavkaz to the border. There is a traffic jam for 20 kilometers. October 19th, one of the Moscow barber shops, the male master Kirill complains that there are practically no clients, there is no one to cut their hair. His partner was mobilized, and the revenues significantly dropped. As soon as the mobilization was announced, we probably lost 30% of our customers for sure. And I have friends who work in barbershops, barbers, managers, business owners too. A lot. Everyone noted a very strong decline in customers, which only began to progress in future. On October 28th, the Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu reported to Putin on the end of the so-called partial mobilization. According to Shoigu, 218,000 mobilized are at the training grounds, and another 82,000 have already been sent to the combat zone in Ukraine. At the same time, the Russian Federal Security Service published data on the departures of Russians abroad in the third quarter of 2022. The figure turned out to be 2 times more than in the spring. So during July, August and September, the border with Russia was crossed for departure 9.7 million times. I think that in fact there are many more of these departures, and they are probably associated with many difficulties, which such statistics are silent about. Mobilization, which our government calls partial, for many was the last straw in the cup of patience, and of course there are many circumstances related, such as widespread censorship, the restriction of civil liberties, difficulties in working with foreign contractors in foreign companies. Our normal civilian life has collapsed very much since the start of the war with Ukraine on February the 24th. The most popular destinations were Kazakhstan, Armenia, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Mongolia and Georgia. The number of departures for these countries has become a record for the last 5 years. At the same time, 70% of departures were recorded precisely at the border with Georgia. There went 2.5 million times. Russians traveled to Turkey 2.1 million times, according to the Federal Security Service, mostly for tourism purposes. Tajikistan has also become a popular destination. Those Russians who couldn't avoid the summons and were sent to military units tried to inform their relatives about what was happening. Mommy, dear, I beg you very much to get me out of here. I don't know. Contact the military commissar, the district police officer, or the journalists. The main staff here are Tajiks. They don't perceive us Russians as people at all. They only force us to be on duty. We Russians are divided among themselves as servants. You can't even complain to anyone. Having announced the completion of partial mobilization, Russian military commissars continues to hand out summons. This is reported by analysts at the American Institute for the Study of War. Those Russians who ended up in the combat zone on the territory of Ukraine are surrendering en masse. I, Boshenko Alexander Alexandrovich, callsign Dumbhead. I am a driver-mechanic private of the 1st Slavic Brigade of the 10th Motorized Rifle Company. I tell everyone to give up because I surrendered and do not want to serve in the army anymore. We are ordered to go only forward, or they will shoot us. Also, since the end of September, Russians have massively tried to leave for European countries. According to the data of the Federal Customs Service of Russia, they mostly traveled by car through Finland and Norway. On September the 30th, Finland closed the border with the Russian Federation, explaining that it would not be a transit country. Prior to this, transit entry to the European Union for Russians was closed by Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia and Poland. Russian journalist Alexander Podrabinek believes that the outflow of people from Russia will continue. I think that the outflow will be constant, but not maybe at such a high level when it was at the very beginning of the mobilization announcement. But I think that constantly people will leave, and this will continue at least until the war with Ukraine will end. And it is not a fact that it will stop. Generally speaking, in recent years, even for a couple of decades, there has always been an outflow. All the time, they left for emigration for various reasons. But now the reason is obvious, and this is is a very strong motive for many people to leave, and this motive is unlikely to disappear until peace will come. Although the Russian President Putin never signed the decree on the completion of partial mobilization. At the same time, from November 1st, the autumn conscription for military service has already begun in Russia. It will last until December 31st. 120,000 people are subject to the call-up actions. Reported by Pavel Stelmach, Natalia Belokudrya, Evgeny Karmazin, UATV News.